Hello friends, hope you are well. Welcome to my review of this magnificent phone, the realme X3 SuperZoom. This is something I wasn't expecting. I wasn't expecting to find a fantastic addition to my photography lineup. Now, huge thanks to realme because they have actually allowed me to give away 3 realme Buds Wireless to you guys. Now, all you have to do is obviously watch this video, like it, subscribe, and all the details are in the Gleam link below. There will be 3 winners announced at the end of this month, and of course, it'll be posted to you free of charge, but it is only open to Australian residents. So big thanks to realme for organizing that. So let's get started with the review. First of all, let's talk about the actual device and what it looks like, what it feels like in the hand. First of all, it is got this beautiful pearl back end. It kind of feels like glass that's been almost frosted. That's what it feels like, but I think it might be plastic. I'm not actually quite sure, or maybe glass. I haven't managed to drop it or crack it, so that's good. On the back, we have 4 actual cameras. We'll talk about those in a moment. And on the front, we have a full-size screen with no buttons and 2 cameras on the front, which is also really exciting. We'll talk about the cameras in a moment also. On the side, we have a fingerprint button, the lock and unlock phone part of it, and on the other side we have the up and down volume. The screen has a max refresh rate of 120 Hz and it makes this phone buttery smooth, but remember when you do get it, you have to turn it on manually because it comes defaulted to 60. You can also set it to 90. There was no lag that I noticed compared to maybe even Samsung phones that I used in the past, and I was very impressed because one of the limitations that I find with Android is its responsiveness, even however powerful the actual phone is. In this case, that 120 Hz refresh rate really does help to make this feel like it's so fast, no slowdowns. The notch is fairly noticeable when you actually first look at the device, but I have to say the fact that it's on the left and it's away from the right-hand side, which has most of your general information, is actually okay and makes me feel like I'm using a phone without stuff on the screen, and after a while you won't notice it. In fact, most of the time, whatever device you use, the notch will disappear into the background, but even though it's 2 cameras and it's quite a little bit larger than the Samsung single one, it's actually okay. The 1080p Full HD Plus, which is 2400 times 1080 screen, looks fantastic, and even though it's LCD, the colors are great. And the thing with the LCD is how mature it is as a technology, and the battery life on it is fantastic. We'll talk about that in a moment.
That's not to say it's perfect. I did find using the phone in full-on sunlight was extremely problematic, and that's something of an issue that I do not have on my iPhone. No matter how high the brightness was, I could still not see the screen clearly.
Slight discoloration around the cutout at the top side of it. It does have it's slightly there. I'm not sure if it's because of the LCD technology and how it can't be really cut very well, but it does have a bit of discoloration. However, doesn't matter what angle you look at the phone from, the colors brilliant. You won't have weird discolorations like on some cheaper Android phones. There is a bit of a lip at the bottom, or rather a chin, and with more budget-friendly phones you get that chin at the bottom, and that's just a fact of life. But the good thing about it is because I, for example, have been using the swipe method of navigating, it actually makes it easier to swipe because it's just right there at the chin, and you can swipe up and then it touches the screen and then it responds, which makes it easy to catch exactly where I want to go and which way. And to add to that, the navigation of this has been really good. Obviously it's Android built in, and I do like the fact that swiping up on the right hand side, it goes back, and it makes it really easy to not have to move your finger all the way to the top left to go back in a screen. The 12 gigabytes of RAM allows you to flick through app to app with no loading times, and I really appreciate that because once you just open up things and leave your phone running constantly over time, it comes to the point where things could be lagging. And back in the day, you used to go, oh, clear all, turn off all the apps. You don't have to do that anymore. Android 10 has been really good at managing that, and with the amount of RAM, it can really go wild. That's not to say RAM is everything. The CPUs in this are fantastic. They turbo up on the single core usage, and they have a few other cores with much lower clocks, but for all the other applications. And Geekbench scores, very good. Now, some details on the inside of this, it actually has liquid cooling, which meant that during gameplay or when I was using it, the camera, the phone did not heat up, which is good, especially if, let's say, you're plugging it into power. Maybe you're on a plane and you've got it plugged into power and you're playing games. You don't want the thing to overheat, and it certainly did not in my testing. This phone has USB-C, however it does not have a 3.5mm jack, so you will need to bring your own adapter if you want to plug in some headphones. Some Android phones don't come with this feature, but the NFC feature allows you to use Google Pay anytime, and I know that people love that feature, and I certainly do leave my wallet at home nowadays because I can just tap with Google Pay and off you go. It's really easy to set up. Construction wise, I found it to be very grippy in my hand, and even when I put the case on, it felt really good. I would suggest a hardy case if you in case drop it. The Gorilla 5 glass will protect it a little bit, but I would say that because most phones are glass, you don't want to drop it. Now, I actually like this size of screen and phone. It fits really well in my palm. And one other thing is that thumb button where you unlock and lock the phone with its actual fingerprint works really, really well in that location. It's located in just the right place for my size hands, and the phone itself is large enough for me to grip the bottom without it slipping off or falling out and still use the keyboard. Now, in regards to that fingerprint, it's quick. It's really easy to access. Even if you have it on this right hand side, you would just put in your maybe finger or middle finger there as the unlock other finger instead of your thumb. The only thing is, sometimes that fingerprint doesn't quite catch, and that's when the two cameras at the front come in really helpful. Basically, you can have face unlock with those two cameras, and man, it works really, really well. The fact that you can have two ways to access your phone is a really, really big plus, because at the end of the day, if one just misses the beat, the other one picks it up straight away and you don't have to retry. And sometimes I don't even notice that I pressed it or didn't press it, and it opens up straight to the desktop because it sees my face. The only thing I don't like so far about the screen and the unlock area is that you can't tap to unlock anything. You have to press a button lightly. You don't have to press it, but it's a little bit annoying because I do like to have it on the table and just go up and tap, maybe see the time. I don't want to pick it up every time to see what time it is. And I have not been able to find a setting to actually enable that. Let me know below if you guys know how to enable this, because I could not find that setting. The only thing I sort of noted that isn't very Australian, I don't know, and you guys can let me know below what you think is the dual SIM. I would have preferred a ability to add an expansion card to the memory, which this is large in itself, 256, but dual SIM in Australia isn't really a thing. Like, can you guys let me know below? Because traveling in Europe, yep, I would have one for one country and maybe the other one would be a global SIM, or I would have my own SIM from Australia. Especially when you have dual authentication or OTP codes sent to your SMS, it's great to have two SIMs. But when you're in Australia, I don't really see the use case. All right, let's talk battery. This phone has 4200 milliamp battery size. It is fantastic. It lasts a whole day with fairly heavy usage. And then if you do light usage, I got decent 2 days out of it. During the week, I would have to charge it every night, but only at 20-30% when it was low. Phone call quality, fantastic. No issues at all. The loudspeaker is also really good. And something I didn't sort of notice at first was the fact that when I spoke, the other person could hear me much clearer. Usually, you know, that's something people don't check, but I did ask and said, yeah, it was really clear. And I said, what about compared to like last week? And they said, well, actually it's clearer now. It is 4G, of course. Well, Android is Android. I used to use Android a lot, and when I jump back into it, there's always something a little bit different, but the functionality is still the same. I found Android and the skin that realme here has actually really good. A lot of the features that realme has added and little changes, little tweaks have actually made my life easier. But there are still some things that Android doesn't do very well, and that is sometimes it's a little bit hard to follow. It changes so often that sometimes you are looking for a specific setting and it's not there. Android is also a little bit messy. I feel like there's a lot of stuff on the screen sometimes, and even cleaning it up, it feels a little bit disjointed. When you look at this phone and you go, well, okay, it's an Android phone, what's the actual benefit of having this phone compared to any Android phone? What really makes this phone stand out from the crowd is the cameras. I have yet to come up on a phone that can take photos as good as this one. Now this SuperZoom X3 is something that just blows the competition away. The front cameras have 32 megapixels for one camera and the other one has 8. The rear cameras have 64 for both zoom and the main camera. And the wide angle lens has 8 and the macro has 2. It can also record at 1080p, standard 30/60, slow motion of course, and it can also do 4K 60. Absolutely gorgeous, very clear audio, very clear video. I'm actually really impressed with the quality of these cameras. I cannot say enough. I've been dumbfounded how bad the photos on my iPhone XR look compared to this phone. We have a macro lens, we have an ultra wide, we have a standard lens, and we have a super zoom lens. Those four combined make one of the best experiences in taking photos across a wide range of actual situations. One other thing to note is also the night mode, which we'll also mention in a moment. There is a 5x optical zoom, but there's also then the 60x actual digital zoom. Now, because of the high megapixel count, the actual quality of that zoom is very impressive. I have to say, at a high range like this photo, or actually this video, when you zoom in, it still keeps a lot of the quality, and it also lets you balance the image. So when you're holding your phone, and obviously at a very long distance, your shakes mean a lot more. And this has a really clean way of making sure that whatever you're looking at, and even though you've got a little bit of a shake in there, it balances out. I was really impressed how well it worked at distance. Now, there are multiple photo modes. We've got panoramic, we've got wide view, we've got everything from left, right to center. But it also does HDR, and I really think this HDR implementation is actually really smart. The way it actually captures the image and chooses what to make light or dark and how to balance the image. And when I do take photos, not only do I not have to worry about switching between cameras, it automatically does it depending on what zoom level I'm on. And also I have some extra options that Realme has added in, like the macro option where I can really zoom in on something and get those really small details. It also has super nightscape shots, which are just mind-blowingly good, especially comparing it to the Pixel, which is also almost double the price. But to note, the night photography has a little bit of a slight delay because it does have to have a longer exposure to the light to bring that balance in and expose more of the light and give you much better night shots. Here's a couple of night shots for you to experience what it might look like. Now again, looking at your monitor, it might look a little bit different, but for me, these photos look really, really good. Now, unlike some of the iPhone lineups, you can take photos with a bokeh effect on the items behind it, and here's a little summary of what bokeh is. This camera right now that I'm speaking to, it has a slight bokeh effect at the back, and it's really impressive to see that the device actually helps you work it out. And even if it's digital and optical at some shots, depending on which lens you use, the actual effect is really nice and clean and not too overpowering. Now, another little interesting feature that I found is the AI recognition. When I used the phone and pointed at certain things, all of a sudden a little word would pop up and actually let me know what that item was. It would name it. Say if I was looking at my dog, it would say puppy. I don't know why I wouldn't say dog. In any case, if I looked at a flower, it said flower, and it recognized a whole lot of items. The camera abilities are far and wide beyond what I expected. Even the Super Nightscape 4.0 and Starry mode, which lets you do a night time lapse across the sky with no particular need for weird settings or even expensive hardware. You just put a stand and a bit of a battery in there and off you go. I was impressed. Now, to summarize, this Realme X3 Super Zoom is very powerful. That Super Zoom is 60x digital zoom, and it can do up to 100 meters fairly clearly. It has a Snapdragon 855 Plus, and it performs really, really well with an Arduino actual GPU. And again, the gaming on this is fantastic. The 120 Hz ultra smooth refresh rate really makes this a flagship phone priced at a budget phone. All right, let's talk price. The recommended retail price is 700 Australian dollars. This phone, with all its features, is $700. I would highly recommend it for somebody who's looking for a high-end flagship Android phone and not willing to pay the Samsung fees. For $700, you get a fantastic camera phone, and you obviously get all the features of an Android phone. And what really makes it stand out is the 120 Hz refresh rate screen. It's beautiful, it's smooth, it's just fantastic, and that battery life is hard to beat, especially now in the market. This phone is priced so well, I cannot find the faults in it to say, hey, you shouldn't buy it. There is really no reason, if you're looking for a new phone around that price range, to not consider this phone for your next flagship upgrade. Friends, thank you very much for watching. Big thanks to realme for sending me this phone for review. Again, I am very impressed, and the highlight is the camera. If you're looking for a phone that has the best camera, or basically the best overall wide access to camera features, this is it. At this price range, it's hard to beat, especially even in the Android ecosystem. Now remember, the link is below for the competition to win the Realme Buds Wireless. Really excited. So again, thanks for Realme for organizing that. All the details are in the Gleam link below. Friends, thank you very much for watching. Let me know your thoughts below. If you'd like to see more, please consider subscribing, and we'll see you guys in another video. Bye!